Welcome to another transfer tips video ahead of Double Gameweek 36. Just a quick disclaimer before we start off. This video is recorded before the Manchester City versus Real Madrid game in the Champions League, so things could change. If Joao Cancelo gets injured, then of course he would no longer be a buy. But let's get straight into this. 3 players to buy, hold, sell and skip for each section, totaling 12 overall. And we're going to be talking about this. Let me know if you disagree with any of these picks, and who would you also include, those players that we haven't talked about today. Over the course of the season, Joao Cancelo has amassed 9 assists and 1 goal. His stats overall are pretty good. His XG, I keep on talking about this whenever I talk about Cancelo. I don't know how he hasn't got more goals. An XG of over 5 and only 1 goal. A lot of times he has shots from distance that hit the post or that are saved by the goalkeeper. But even the shots in the box is decent. 23 shots in the box in 32 games. 69 shots overall and 22 on target. And if we look specifically at the last 10 games, he's only got 1 assist in that time period. So he has been a bit frustrating. And I think he's just got 2 yellow cards in a row. So I can understand if some, owners are feeling a bit aggrieved at the moment. But his XG is 1.69 over the last 10 games. His expected assist is 1.29. And he's had 1 big chance and 1 big chance created with 10 key passes. So the underlying numbers aren't that great recently, but I think there are explanations for that. For example, Kyle Walker has been injured for a few of these games, and therefore Joao Cancelo can't play as the left back. And normally he has more license to go forward when Walker's in the team, because he will then slot in as the third centre back and be the more defensive of the two. And Joao Cancelo is allowed to bomb forward as a result. That hasn't happened in the last 10 game weeks or so, but he's still a fantastic option. And even when he doesn't get those assists or goals, he can get those bonus points because he does a lot of different aspects in the game, the passes, the dribbles, the crosses, etc. And he does it very well, and it's very favourable in the bonus point system. So for me, Joao Cancelo is a buy. His ownership is at over 40%. I would definitely go for Cancelo and Laporte. Those are my ideal City defenders, but you could also consider Diaz, especially if something happens to Cancelo, and hopefully it doesn't. Next up is Joel Matip, and I actually talked about skipping him quite a while ago, and the reason for that, and I still back my argument then, is that I prefer Robertson, Trent and also Salah. That is my ideal Liverpool triple up. Now Matip has been very good. He's been playing all the league games. He gets those bonus points as well, and he has a bit of attacking threat. 1 goal and 2 assists this season, and actually if we look at his last 10 games specifically, he's got 1 goal and 1 assist in the last 10 games. So the majority of his returns have come in that time period. His XG and his XA are under 1. So they're not really sustainable, you could say, but he's a centre-back after all. 6 shots inside the box, 6 shots overall and 1 on target. These are stats you would expect from a centre-back because all of the shots will be inside the box because he is a centre-back and he gets them mainly from the set pieces. 1 big chance and 1 big chance created, just like with Joao Cancelo. So for me, Joel Matip around his price is probably one of the best, if not the best defender at the moment. It looks like Konate plays in the FA Cup and the Champions League, while Matip will be able to play in the Premier League. Now, is he going to play against Aston Villa and Tottenham in such a short period of time? There could be a question mark or two about it, but because Konate has been playing all the other games, I think the workload has eased a bit on Joel Matip, and hopefully he doesn't get injured as well. That would be obviously a big shame. So hopefully he can stay fit. His underlying numbers aren't anything special, but he can get those bonus points for you, and I would expect a lot of clean sheets until the end of the season for both Liverpool and Manchester City, so I'll definitely recommend their defenders. If we look across the whole season, Nketiah's stats are pretty dismal actually. 2 goals and 1 assist in 17 games, and obviously both goals came against Chelsea. His XG is only 2.56, his expected assist is 1.52, only 4 big chances, 2 big chances created. However, he's only started in the last couple of games, so since that Chelsea match, he's had 4 games, 2 goals there, obviously both of them came in that same game that I mentioned, 8 shots inside the box, 13 shots overall in 4 games is decent, with 7 of them being on target. His XG is 1.75 in the last 4 games, and his expected assist is 0.45 with 2 big chances. So when you look at the last 4 games when he's actually started and got a consistent run of minutes, he has looked better. And against West Ham, despite not scoring, he came very close. He forced some good saves from Fabianski, and he almost came close himself, just about missing the target with a very well taken finesse shot. So for me, Nketiah is worth considering, especially on the bench boost. Check out that best bench boost team video that I mentioned. I would love to have him in my own team as well, and you could double up on Arsenal attack. Would I go gung-ho and go triple up with Martinelli, Saka and Nketiah? No, I think Nketiah and Saka is the double up you want. And if I had to pick one attacker from Arsenal, who would it be? It's still Bukayo Saka for me. But with the lack of forward options, and also if you're looking to bench boost, Nketiah is a great enabler, and he's a great purchase as a result. So for me, Nketiah is a buy, although the underlying numbers are still not fantastic. It seemed like the same old when Kulusevski was benched. We had a lot of benchings in Game Week 35, but I still think Kulusevski is probably the second best player around his price behind Bukayo Saka, and he's got some good fixtures to round off the season. Yes, the double isn't that great, so if you could go from Kulusevski to Foden, then yes, fair enough, I would possibly sell. The same goes for, of course, De Bruyne, Salah, Mane, or one of these top options in the midfield. But would I go Kulusevski to Havertz or Mount? Probably not at this moment in time, because I really like Game Weeks 37 and 38. So even if you're free hitting in Game Week 37, which is what I'm looking to do, you would still want Kulusevski, Son, and possibly Harry Kane for that Norwich fixture. Now, his underlying numbers are decent, considering the fact he's only played 14 games, so you can see these on screen. However, if we look specifically at the last, let's say, 4 games, they haven't been that great, actually. So he's got 1 goal and 3 assists in 4 games, and bear in mind he came off the bench against Leicester, but only 3 shots inside the box, 3 shots overall, and 1 on target. His XG is 0.27 in 4 games. Compare that to Nketiah, who of course is a striker, but that is dismal. Even his expected assist is 0.29. Now, Kulusevski has the most assists of any player in the Premier League since he joined and made his first appearance in February, but he's had 0 big chances and 0 big chances created in his last 4 games. So the underlying numbers are very poor, and maybe that gives you an insight into why Conte benched him in the first place for Lucas Moura, to try something different. Obviously, I think Steven Bergwijn deserves more minutes. He's been very unlucky, but Kulusevski's numbers aren't that great. However, around his price, I still think he's better than Martinelli, Conor Gallagher, James Ward-Prowse, and all the other options. He has a double game week and good fixtures to conclude the season, and he doesn't necessarily need great underlying numbers to actually get FPL points, as he demonstrated against Leicester. I mean, look at the pass he gave to Son, then he does an amazing goal to score his second goal there, Heung-min Son, and that is a very low, let's say, expected assist number, but Kulusevski still gets the assist anyway, so it doesn't really matter. He is playing with 2 top finishers, so even if he just passes the ball to them and Son or Kane have a long shot, it could still go in, basically. I would still keep Kulusevski. However, I would be tempted to go to one of those midfielders I mentioned earlier, because they would be upgrades. However, around the same price, only Saka is the one that's better than him, and that is worth making an upgrade to. I'm going to mention a few players for Chelsea in this video once again. Marcos Alonso for me is a hold. So if you look across the season, 3 goals and 5 assists, he's definitely stepped up the attacking returns in the last 10 game weeks or so. His XG and XA are also pretty healthy. They match the goal output that he has produced. 3 big chances and 7 big chances created. Now, if we look specifically at the last 10 games, he's got 2 goals and 2 assists. So quite a lot of those goal contributions have come in recent game weeks. Of course, in Game Week 34, he produced a 19-point haul, and he was a big difference over the likes of Reece James. 15 shots inside the box in the last 10 appearances is crazy. 21 shots overall, only 4 on target, but still good shot volume. His XG is 1.68 and his expected assist is 2.29. Once again, matching the goal output, so there's no degree of unsustainability there. 2 big chances and 3 big chances created. I think Alonso is the best Chelsea defender right now. Until Ben Chilwell comes back, I don't really expect that to happen anytime soon. There's no need to really rush him, and Chelsea only have the FA Cup final to really push forward and look forward to. They are still in a bit of a precarious situation when it comes to the top 4 race, but you would still expect them with those fixtures to step things up, and I don't expect them to be lackluster for the rest of the season. So for me, Marcos Alonso is a hold, and I think he's arguably the best Chelsea asset. Heading into Game Week 34, I did say I thought Havertz was the better option for that specific game week, but I preferred Mason Mount until the end of the season because I think he's more nailed, and over the course of the entire campaign, he has been more consistent. As you can see, 10 goals and 10 assists is a very healthy return in 30 appearances. His XG and XA, yes, there is a degree of overperformance in both aspects, but they are still decent numbers, especially around his price. 9 big chances and 9 big chances created. He has been disappointing since a lot of us brought him in ahead of Game Week 34, such as myself, but still good underlying numbers across the whole season, and in the last 10 games, decent numbers. His XG and XA are quite low, 2.07 for XG and 2.60 for XA, and he's got 3 goals and 4 assists, so there is an overperformance once again. 27 shots overall, only 7 on target, but 13 inside the box, so decent shot volume, just not enough on target perhaps. 2 big chances, which is pretty low, and 3 big chances created, but I still think Mason Mount has great fixtures. I would only be concerned about rotation, just like with Reece James, who we'll get onto in a minute, and still some fantastic fixtures to round off the season. I would expect him to start against Watford in Game Week 38, although the FA Cup final is also going to play a part in Thomas Tuchel's team selection for those final Premier League matches for Chelsea, so I would be slightly concerned. However, unless you're going to one of those midfielders I said, like Saka, maybe Mane, Salah, Kevin De Bruyne, etc., maybe Foden, I still wouldn't be in a rush to get rid of him for even Kulusevski or those other players around the same price as Mason Mount that I haven't mentioned. So for me, Mason Mount is a hold in most cases. Now, you may be wondering, why is Mason Mount a hold and Havertz is a sell? Now, if you have both of them and you're in a position where you want to get to one of those midfielders I keep on mentioning throughout this video, I would rather sell Kai Havertz. Now, I'll say this right now, this could backfire. There's always a risk. I think Havertz is a good FPL option, but would I triple up with Chelsea or at least have two of their attackers? I don't think so. I think that's too much, and I'd be very worried about rotation. So for me, Kai Havertz, despite having good underlying numbers, especially in terms of the XG, as you can see there, I'm still not too sure. He has definitely underperformed in the recent game weeks. Against United, I don't know how he didn't score in that game. He's got 7 goals and 4 assists across the whole season in 26 appearances with limited minutes. He's been on and off with constant injuries and different issues. So these aren't bad numbers. 15 big chances is also pretty healthy. If you look at the last 10 games specifically, he's got 5 goals and 2 assists. So he's actually been slightly better than Mason Mount in that regard. His XG is 5, so he's actually matching the numbers there despite his really bad finishing against United. His XA is 1.79. 9 big chances though in 10 appearances. So to be fair, you can let me know down in the comment section below if you disagree. Maybe you will think, you know what, maybe Mason Mount is the one to sell if I had both of them and I would keep Havertz. I think it's very close. Let me make that very clear, but I wanted to give a platform to Kai Havertz and talk about him specifically. So it's just my opinion. I think I would still rather keep Mason Mount because he's been more consistent over the course of the season. However, once again, if you're not going to Saka or one of those midfielders I mentioned, then do you really need to sell Kai Havertz? That is also something else you need to think about, and you might have other priorities in your team. But if that's the only way you can get to one of those midfielders that I think could do really well this week, then I would sell the German. Whether you agree or disagree with these picks, let's get this video to 150 likes. It'd be very much appreciated and it helps in the algorithm. Now, Reece James can punish anyone, whether you have him or don't have him. I brought him in ahead of Game Week 31 and he's been a complete disaster for me. He's got no returns in that time period, but he can still produce big returns, especially with those fixtures available to him. But my main problem with him is his minutes being managed, as well as his injuries, the constant doubts about whether he's going to start or not. And if you can go to Joel Matip, Robertson, although I have concerns about him starting both games, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Joao Cancelo or Laporte, I'd easily sell James to any single one of them. Even Robertson, because until the end of the season, I back him to start pretty much every single game, apart from maybe one in 36. And I think he's a better option who plays in a better team and a better defence. So I think that would be quite an easy switch. Now, James has some very good numbers, especially the goal output, but it's certainly dried up in the last 10 game weeks or so. Now, if we look at the last 10 games, he's got 1 goal and 2 assists. His XG isn't even 1. His expected assists is just over 2. It's still matching the numbers though, the goal output. So there's not huge concern there about unsustainability of returns. He's got 1 big chance in that time period and 4 big chances created. However, he did hit the post against Manchester United. I don't know how he didn't get an assist in that game. You know, the chances he created for Havertz and a few other players. I think James is a quality player, and that performance against United was enough for me to keep him ahead of Everton, but ultimately, once again, he did disappoint. And I still think he's a great option, by the way, and he could come back to bite you. But if you can go to one of those players I mentioned, especially from one of the top 2 teams in the country, I think it's a very easy switch. And even if James produces a big return, I still would back that decision, and I think it pays off in the long term. At this point, you probably would have turned off this video and say, why are you talking about selling James and Kane? They're amazing FPL assets, and I agree. I think they're fantastic. Harry Kane has been exceptional under Conte. He's got 13 goals and 10 assists in 33 games, and remember, he only scored against Newcastle under Nuno Espirito Santo. He was absolutely dismal in that time period. His XG is just under 17. His expected assists is just under 11. 28 big chances. Look at these numbers. 110 shots, 44 on target, 69 shots inside the box. And if we look at the last 10 games, 6 goals and 8 assists. These are Messi-esque numbers, Ronaldo-esque numbers. They are fantastic. His XG is just over 5 in the last 10 games. His expected assists is just under 5, but he has assumed more of this creative role. 10 big chances in that time period with 9 big chances created. This is absolutely exceptional. Why am I saying we should sell him potentially? Because you could go to Kevin De Bruyne with that money, even Sadio Mane, Mohamed Salah, etc. I think they are better premiums until the end of the season, not to mention Heung-min Son, who I think offers better value for money. And what I really like about getting Son is that you could switch him to one of those midfielders I mentioned, to Kevin De Bruyne one week, then Son, and it gives you more flexibility. The only forwards you would really consider around Kane's price is pretty much Cristiano Ronaldo, and he has no doubles. He's only got 2 games left in this season. So for me, Harry Kane, he could definitely go big against Arsenal and against Burnley and Norwich, but I would still sell him, especially if it's to go to Heung-min Son, Kevin De Bruyne or Salah. However, if you have these players already, maybe you don't really need to do it unless you're looking for a bench boost team, and actually downgrading Kane can go a long way in boosting your bench boost and doing very well until the end of the season, having good squad depth and also just making better moves overall in your midfield, for example. So for me, Harry Kane, I think is a great option, and if you're going to one of those premiums, it's definitely worth selling. Otherwise, you could consider holding. Let me know what you think of this. Maybe some of you will disagree, but I think Heung-min Son is the better option right now. We're now onto the final section, and there's going to be a few different names in here that maybe not a lot of people are talking about, and with good reason. But Harvey Barnes is an interesting one. If you have him, it's very tricky because he's got a very good double, and he's got another double in 37. So the way I see it is, if you don't have a free hit, I would probably keep him because he has back-to-back doubles. But my main concern is if Leicester reach the Conference League final, there could be some minutes managed there for Barnes and Maddison and all these other players. Now, I'm actually a bit surprised about Barnes' situation because he didn't start in the Conference League. He came off the bench and he got an assist, I believe. But then he didn't start against Tottenham as well. So maybe he's going to start against Roma in the second leg now. And ultimately, I just don't like the rotation policy from Brendan Rodgers at Leicester. The only player I would definitely back in that double game week is Kasper Schmeichel. I'd still be very concerned about Maddison, who also gets a lot of injuries, and his minutes are definitely managed. And Harvey Barnes has a bit of a difficult situation. He's in a limbo almost. That's what I would call it. His stats across the season are okay, especially his assists. Having 8 assists is still pretty decent with limited minutes. However, there is an overperformance there in terms of the expected assists. However, there's also an underperformance when you look at the XG. 7 big chances, 5 big chances created over the course of the season. But if we look at the recent games, actually, 2 goals and 3 assists in 10 appearances. Not that great. His XG is just over 2. His expected assists is just over 1. Only 2 big chances and 1 big chance created in that time. So I still prefer Kulusevski and Bukayo Saka, who for me is the best around 6-7 million. So I would rather go for those 2 players. Even Mason Mount is someone I prefer over Harvey Barnes. And from the Leicester midfield, there's Lookman and a few others that really catch your eye from time to time. But Maddison for me is the standout. I just don't like Leicester's rotation, so I would personally skip them. If you have Harvey Barnes already and they reached a final, I would actually still be tempted to sell, although maybe you could do that ahead of Game Week 37. It's a very difficult situation and not the easiest question to answer, but I think I would skip Harvey Barnes. Conor Gallagher was one of the best midfielders in the first half of the season in FPL, but the returns have just dried up in the last 10 appearances. So you look at these numbers across the whole campaign, and they're very good. He's had a fantastic season still, and he's been a great signing for Palace. But let's talk about the last 10 games. A lot of people will be interested in him because of the fixtures. He's got a double in 37. I might even consider him for the free hit in that game week, but the last 10 games, 1 goal and 1 assist. His XG is 1, exactly 1. His expected assist is 0.41, only 1 big chance, none created, 5 key passes, 9 shots, 4 on target, and 6 inside the box in 10 games. These are awful numbers, and I personally wouldn't go for him. If I were to go for a Crystal Palace attacker, it would definitely be Zaha right now, who's also on penalties. So I'd rather go for the Ivorian and not go for Conor Gallagher. Let me know what you think. And also, look, the underlying numbers are awful. His form is pretty poor from an offensive point of view, but he could still come good. He showed his class in the first half of the season, what he's capable of, and it's not like he's destined to blank forever, but I just don't think there's enough to go for Gallagher over the likes of Kulusevski, even Barnes, Maddison, Saka, Mason Mount, Foden, all these options around 6 to 8 million. So for me, Conor Gallagher is a skip. The final player we're going to discuss in this video is James Ward-Prowse. I really like him as a player, but the underlying numbers are always going to be poor because a lot of his returns come from free kicks. He's arguably the best free kick taker in the world at the moment. He's got 9 goals and 5 assists, and he's got 15 points in his last 2 FPL appearances. So he's certainly a decent option, but you look at the remaining fixtures, Brentford and Leicester away, as well as Liverpool at home in 37. These are pretty awful games, and I wouldn't go for Ward-Prowse once again over midfielders around his price who will have doubles, who will have better form, better underlying numbers, and I would argue a higher ceiling. So as much as I like Ward-Prowse as a player, and I think he's got great technique, I don't think he's worth considering in FPL right now. In the last 10 games, he's got 3 goals and 1 assist, the vast majority pretty much coming from set pieces, 15 shots, only 5 on target, and 0 shots inside the box. 0. We're talking about goalkeeper stats here. His XG is 0.8 and his expected assist is 2.06. 0 big chances once again and 3 big chances created. These underlying numbers are awful. Obviously, he's got the technique, the ability to still produce goals and assists out of nothing, but I don't think it's worth going for him over any midfielder around his price, especially those that I mentioned before countless times in this video. So I would skip James Ward-Prowse. That's it. That's another game week covered. 12 players to buy, hold, sell and skip. Let me know if you disagree with any of these picks. Of course, Havertz and James will be contentious. Same with Harry Kane as well. They're all great options that could deliver in Game Week 36 and could punish sellers. So take this with a pinch of salt. I'm just offering my opinions on each of these players that I think are worth highlighting in this Game Week. But thank you very much for watching. If you found this video useful or entertaining, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and join the Discord server. The link is in the description below. You can also become a Patreon or a channel member to support the channel even further and get exclusive early access to all of my videos and also many more perks that you can see in the description below. So thank you very much. Take care, enjoy the football, all the best of luck for Double Gameweek 36, and I'll see you next time.